League of Women Voters of Athens County, and on behalf of our members, I would like to welcome you to this evening's forum for the two candidates who will be on the Democratic primary ballot for Ohio's 15th Congressional District. The two candidates are Daniel Kilgore and Joel Newby, both from Columbus. The winner of the Democratic primary will face the winner of the Republican primary in November. Thank you both for being here this evening. And I'd like to thank the Community Center as well for providing this space and support for this evening's event. And thanks go to the press. We have a good turnout from the press. The Post is here, the Messenger is here, the A News is here, and the New Political. So that is wonderful. We will have many more people who know what's going on here tonight than are able to attend. We also have Ryan Schwartzhoff of the Government Channel. He is videotaping this evening's event. He's live streaming it, so it's available right now. If you want to text your friends and say you can't be here, you can watch. And it's recorded as well. It will be on the city Facebook page, it will be on the government channel, it will be on YouTube. So there are many opportunities for people to see what is going on here tonight. I would like you to know that we have invited both Republican candidates, because on the Republican ballot there are two candidates for the 15th district. We invited them to a similar kind of forum, but neither was able to attend. So we decided that we would invite them once more to another event. And one of the candidates will be there. That event is next Tuesday, February 18th at Trimble High School. There will be candidates from several races, so we thought we would invite the candidates for the 15th district, Republican candidates, if they would come. One of the candidates accepted, Shelby Hunt. He did accept our invitation, so we expect him to participate at Trimble High School on February 18th, along with the other candidates who will be there. Democratic candidates for Athens County Treasurer will be there, and Republican candidates for the 78th Ohio House District, which includes Trimble Township in Athens County. So they will be there in Trimble as well. So that is next Tuesday, February 18th, 6:30 to 8 p.m. at Trimble High School. As you know, the League of Women Voters does not support candidates or political parties. This organization supports voters, and it's been doing it for 100 years. This is the 100th anniversary of the founding of the League of Women Voters, as well as the 100th anniversary of women achieving the right to vote. We support voters in a number of ways. We organize candidate forums and candidate nights so that voters have an opportunity to hear from candidates and to learn about issues that they will have to make decisions about on their ballots. We also produce a voter guide, and the candidates are currently answering questions to questions that the League has proposed. Those questions should be in by mid-February. The Messenger will produce a print copy of the voter guide by late February or early March. We also have access to the voter guide online at vote411.org, and the candidate responses should be there probably after the middle of February, so you can check that. When you go to vote411.org, you type in your address, and you can click on the link to see your ballot. We also register voters, and we were out doing that today and yesterday in advance of the primary. Voter registration ends February 18th for eligibility in the primary. If you know any 17-year-olds who will be 18 by the general election date, is it November 3rd? they can register and they can vote for candidates in the primary. So if you know any, you can have them register to vote. We invite any and all of you who might be interested in joining the League of Women Voters. Women and men aged 16 and older are eligible to join. There are membership brochures on the back table. If you're interested in joining, please take one. Also on the back table are some voter support cards with that website, Vote for Women, prominently at the top, as well as important dates to remember. So please take one of those. And finally, the League is supporting and promoting participation in the census. And we have information cards about that. If you know people who need to be encouraged to participate, please take some cards and spread the word. Also on the back table is a copy of the next forums that we are doing. So you can take a screenshot of that. We won't have too many of them, but we have a number of candidate events for the Democratic candidates for Athens County Treasurer. We decided we wanted to make their information available to all Athens County communities, or at least to most of them, because we know people don't always drive into Athens to hear from them. So on this one, you can see where we will be when with those candidates. So now I am going to turn it over to our moderator, Beth Clodfelter. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Mary, and thanks very much to all of you for coming out for this event. I think this is just an excellent chance to become better informed about who you want to vote for Congress. So I'm happy to welcome Daniel Kilgore and Joel Newby. First, I'm going to start by explaining some procedures for the forum for these two Ohio 15th Congressional District candidates. The event is going to include opening statements, questions from media representatives, one each to start, and then it's possible we'll go back to them later in the evening. Questions from the audience, and then closing statements from each candidate. So I'm going to explain some instructions for the candidates and then have some instructions briefly for the audience as well. So you will each have 3 minutes for an opening statement, 2 minutes for a closing statement, and 1.5 minutes to answer each question. There are no rebuttals. It's not a debate. You're invited to share your qualifications and experience and to talk about your plans and proposals. Candidates are asked to focus on topics relevant to the stated question, not like any certain national politicians we won't mention, actually answer the question as, to avoid personal attacks and to raise any issues that are unrelated to the office being sought. If you go outside those guidelines, we may stop to remind you of the guidelines. Joel Newby will give the opening statement, and then the person who speaks first will alternate for the rest of the evening. As the candidates are no doubt very well aware, there's a timekeeper in the first row. It's very nice of her to do that. She is going to hold up a sign when there's half a minute left or 30 seconds left of speaking time, and then one at 15 seconds, and then one that says stop. And I will be sort of collaborating with her on the stop point. If you don't actually stop, I'm going to say thank you and go on to the next question. For the audience, a lot of you have probably been to these before, so these will be familiar, but I would ask that you all please turn off your cell phones, turn them all the way to silent, please. Also, we ask that you treat both candidates fairly, and that includes being quiet during this. No cheering or booing or any other noises. No applause, please. You will have a chance to applaud after both candidates have concluded their closing statements, or when we're all done. Then you're welcome to clap at that point, but not before that, please. You are very much encouraged and warmly welcomed to submit questions. I think you all had a piece of paper and a pencil on your seat, and there are people from the League of Women Voters going around to pick them up. Just raise your hand nice and high if another question occurs to you. So glad you all came out, but this is a fairly small crowd, so you might have a chance to get more than one question answer chosen to be asked, and so feel free to submit more than one this evening. And then these two ladies will be reviewing the questions to make sure that duplicates aren't asked, etc., and handing them to me. So the League of Women Voters has a well-oiled machine for these candidate forums, and again, thank you for being here for this. So, I would like to get things started by welcoming Joel Newby to begin his opening statement.
We stand or sit? Stand or sit? Stand. Is it on? Is it on? Can you hear me? All right. Hi, my name is Joel Newby. I am a candidate for the 15th District running against Steve Stivers. I want to talk about something that is on all of our minds, especially with this presidential campaign as well, and that's electability. Because numerous times throughout, since this district has been gerrymandered the way it is to keep Steve Stivers in office as long as physically possible, we've ran Democrats and we have not yet won. So we have to worry about electability. It has to be a concern. And I believe that I solve part of that concern with my story. I grew up in Pickaway County. I went to Westfall High School. That is something that's not typically heard out of one of these candidates. After I graduated from Westfall High School, I went on, came down here to OU, got my bachelor's in political science and sociology. I loved Athens so much. I felt like I had more to learn. I stuck around and got my master's degree in political science from OU. When it was time to move on, I moved up to Franklin County and got my law degree from Capital University Law School. I graduated, passed the bar, and now I practice criminal and personal injury law in Columbus. All the time, all of us Democrats complain that this district is gerrymandered to keep Steve Stivers in office. I like to say that this district was gerrymandered to put my life inside of it. I've lived and worked with the people of this district. I know how they think, they feel, what's going on. I understand that what the issues in Columbus are not the issues here in Athens. I understand the differences between what I like to consider three broad regions: the big city, the swath of farmland, and down here in Appalachia, Ohio. I feel like this part of Ohio has also been left behind. I understand this because I've lived and worked with the people of this district, and I think that's part of the argument that will be highly successful against Steve Stivers. I want to go ahead and thank the League of Women Voters for putting this on tonight. As a political science junkie, these forums mean everything to me, so I greatly appreciate the opportunity. And please ask any questions that I can answer. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Kilgore. I'm also a candidate for the congressional seat here in the 15th District. And I also like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this. I miss the days when you guys did the presidential debates. They're a lot cleaner. Now, I'm sort of like an unconventional candidate. I'm one of those people that probably should never have thought or had the opportunity to run for public office before. I'm someone that was raised by the grandparents from the time they were 4 years old, had to work 2 jobs, worked in a restaurant in the morning, factory at night, go to college, and still struggled to get by. Ended up moving down to Columbus to try to find a better living, because quite frankly I was working those 2 jobs and still didn't have enough money to pay my bills. Once I got down to Columbus, I ended up becoming homeless shortly after moving down here. I slept in a car, slept on people's couches, but I was able to bounce back. Got 2 jobs again, was able to get back on my feet. While all doing this, I was still taking care of my grandmother who lived 2 hours away from where I live. So I'm sort of unconventional. Not too many candidates have gone through that or in that rapid succession. Now, not too many people in Washington can say they have been through the exact same thing or even remotely close to it. There are too many people that are struggling to get by, not making enough to make ends meet. Too many people being crushed by student loan debt. Too many people being crushed by unnecessary medical bills, and even people that need bare necessities to keep going, like medication that can no longer afford it, or they're rationing medication that they need to stay alive. Now, my grandfather was a diabetic. He used 2 different types of insulin. If he did some of those things that are happening now, he wouldn't have lived as long as he did, especially with how bad his diabetes was. These things are unacceptable. We have politicians that are not addressing the issues or don't seem to understand what the issues are. I've lived through the struggles that a lot of people are going through. Not enough money to buy food, not enough money to pay rent. That's my day-to-day life. I'm running for Congress while working a full-time job. That's not an easy task in itself. So it's time we actually get someone that's a real person, not a career politician, that's not lobbied in with the millionaires, the billionaires, the big pharmaceutical companies, someone that actually understands what real America is like, comes from real American issues. And that's what I'm trying to do here today, and hopefully I'll be able to answer all your questions. And thank you all for coming out tonight.
Thank you, candidates. Now we're going to start with one question each from our media representatives before we go to the audience questions. So, Delaney Murray from the A News, could you please start us off?
Yeah, you got it.
Louder? Okay, cool.
Yeah, you have to like talk into the top.
Drown out the voice, that's good. So I want to first start this off with a question about jobs. Both of these are very job-heavy campaigns. Specifically, we're doing a large focus on agriculture and infrastructure. This can be a tricky area because we have some cities in Athens County that are agriculture heavy and some that are not. And we have problems with infrastructure here. So what sort of jobs do you think are needed in an area like this, and what would you do in Congress to make those jobs happen?
That's a very good question. It's also a very complicated question. Since I've been canvassing, talking to different counties, the needs of Franklin County are completely different than the needs of Hawking, Perry, Ross, and Pickaway. Sorry, not Perry, but Pickaway. The needs are different. So in Hawking County, the big thing is infrastructure. They've had to come up with creative ways to save money in order to get things fixed. One thing that we need is someone in Washington that's actually going to be a partner for these counties to make sure that they have the funding that they're needed and actually have open lines of communication to make sure farmers are getting the aid they need for this trade war that's going on, or are able to get reimbursements for climate change issues that have affected their crops. Now, the only way we can do that is with partnerships, but I also do have a plan. I teamed up with 50 other candidates and we drafted what's called the Fight to Unite initiative. This plan encompasses infrastructure jobs, green energy jobs, cutting the homeless rate, cutting poverty, and also making sure that we're sustaining ourselves for the future and constantly improving what we have or fixing what needs to be fixed.
Due to my experience here in Athens, I understand what you're getting at. We're talking about here in Athens, we have something where, because the university's here, it's the big city in the county, we have opportunities to get Wi-Fi access, we have pretty decent access to roads, to get in and out of the city, but when we talk about the smaller towns around here, like Buckle or MacArthur, or anywhere, name your small town, access to the internet is nearly impossible. How are we going to build a 21st century economy if we can't get the majority of the people in the economy hooked up to the internet? So what I would want to do is do a massive funding structure to get broadband internet into this district. About just under 40% of this district doesn't have, or under 40% has access to broadband internet. We need to get that number up, for sure. Unlike Daniel's idea of coming in with a plan with a big group, I know that Republicans will already buy into my funding of broadband. So I would go independently to them and cut deals in order to get that done, to bring money to Appalachia, Ohio to get it done.
The second media question will be asked by Heather Willard of the Athens Messenger.
Yes, it does.
If you were to be elected, what would be your funding priorities that you would advocate for in the House?
You say funding? I go back to what I just finished up with, infrastructure. It is my opinion that you cannot build an economy unless you have the infrastructure to build the economy on. Not only does that mean bridges and roads, I also want to talk about rail. I want to talk about actually getting rail into Ohio. It's a cleaner type of transportation. Once we get it hooked up to a clean energy grid, which is part of infrastructure, making sure that we have solar farms, make sure that we have windmill farms in District 15. We have plenty of space to do it, and farmers are more willing to change over away from crops into solar farms because they don't have to do the work, because young people aren't going into farming anymore. Instead, they're going into something in Columbus or another big city. So this is a great opportunity for farmers to make money, and we bring clean energy in. But it also goes back to the internet. This is where our economy in the 21st century is being built, on the internet. Small businesses needed to get their products out of the small towns. So in order to bring back the small towns, we have to bring back internet into those small towns.
So like Joel, first thing is infrastructure. Right now the total cost to bring just the nation's infrastructure up to date is $1.6 trillion, and it's going to take us 80 years to do it. That's if we got the funding like that. And at the rate things are going, we're not going to get all that funding. We'll be lucky if we can get a fraction of that funding, say around $95 billion. With that $95 billion, you can get about 12,000 bridges repaired or fixed or possibly even replaced. You can build job centers to train people in a trade and also get them into union jobs like construction, help with roads and the bridges, and also bringing in the coal miners that have lost their jobs into solar power, wind power, hydroelectric power, modernize our electric grid. We're working with things that were designed in the 1960s, and they've surpassed their life expectancy. We have to get the funding for the infrastructure to bring things back up to date. We're falling behind the rest of the world, and we got to get caught up, and I'll do everything in my power to make sure that we're caught up, and hopefully we can surpass other nations that we're lagging behind of.
Our next media question will be from George Shilcock from The Post.
So my question sort of revolves around the fact that the incumbent Representative Stivers has a history of winning the 15th district by arguably fairly large amounts and was widely considered a gerrymandered district. What is different about your campaign compared to previous ones which have failed to gain traction and even?
Well, it goes back to, I'm not your typical politician. I'm a normal human being. When I was out canvassing to get signatures to be on the ballot, I actually had a family of all registered Republicans go out with me because I listened to their problems. I listened to the issues that they had. And they invited me into their home. We had coffee and we talked about the biggest problem that they had to worry about. And that was for the mother's health care. And we weren't talking to each other as a Democrat talking to a Republican. We were talking as human beings, as Americans. And we came to an understanding. Now, if I'm able to do that with them in a very deep red Republican area and be able to win over that family support, and because of the way I'm going about handling talking to people, because if I just listen to one party, I'm ignoring everybody else. And you don't represent everybody if you only talk to one group of people. I'm going to talk to everybody. I don't care the race, the color, the party affiliation. We are all Americans. We all care about the same things. And it's time we get someone to treat everybody as Americans instead of Republicans or Democrats or independents. And that's how I'm going about it.
I appreciate this question because this gets to the heart of my argument that I mentioned in my opening. We need somebody that can actually win this district, and I am that candidate. I am that candidate because out of the 4 people running for this seat, I'm the only one that went to high school in this seat. I'm the only one with a high school teacher in this seat. I'm the one that went to college in this district. I'm the one with that hometown feel that will be able to get the job done when I talk to independents and Republicans. You see, I talk a lot tonight, and you'll hear me talk a bunch about farmers or independents, and it's because those are my friends, my family, my neighbors that have been absolutely hurt since Donald Trump has taken office. I understand their concerns. And I understand that they just want to vote for Republican, but maybe I'll be that one Democrat. And because I understand them and I'm able to actually speak to the issues that they care about, that's the game changer. I also have a 12-county strategy where I try to win each county separately instead of trying the whole district. That is something that no other predecessor before me has ever tried before. We're going to win it county by county, speaking to the issues that Republicans and independents care about.
And our last media question will be asked by Ben of the New Political. I think. Did you want to ask a question?
I can, yeah.
Yes.
That was shock.
So I know that one of the big themes of Newby's campaign is that he's from this district, he knows it, and he thinks that he is in a position to represent the people living here better than my bad. And Kilgore is not originally from this district. He does not live in this district. I'm curious why the candidates think that your ability. I was called off guard here, but I'm curious why your ability to represent the district is reflected in your experiences here versus not here. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I think what you're getting at there is why does it matter that you live in the district or have these connections throughout the district, right? I think it's because without those connections, how can you actually say that you represent the people that you come from? I mean, Steve Stivers doesn't come from us, but I will tell you something. The people in this room helped build me. I spent 7 years down here at OU, and whether you came down and taught something, or you interacted in something uptown, or you came to the community hall, or I came out to your small town here in Athens County, this county built me. And because I come from you, I'm able to go to Washington, D.C. and better represent you. And I think that connection is what really matters, is that when independents and Republicans feel that they can trust me because I come from them, because I understand what they're feeling, they'll vote. And that's how we're going to start flipping votes. And I've already started flipping them. We got more to come.
Thank you, Ben, for the question. This one kind of comes up to me a lot. So, I didn't grow up in the district. I grew up in Huron County, in a small town called Willard, Ohio. It's a town with about 3 traffic lights. You blink, you drive through it. Came to Columbus because there really wasn't anything for me up there. Tried to find better job, better living. When I first came here, I lived in Canal Winchester, which straddles District 15 and District 3. And where I lived was in the most confusing part of the city of Columbus. Canal Winchester taxes. Groveport Madison School District, right across the street's Reynoldsburg, and the other side of the street's Pickerington. And guess which fire department you have to call if you need help? Columbus. So it's very complicated, very confusing. I did a lot of volunteer work on Secretary Clinton's presidential campaign, all in District 15. I'm in District 15 every single day. My boyfriend lived in District 15. I'm in there every single day. Just because I barely live outside of it now because I was forced to move due to the circumstances I had, doesn't mean I don't know what's going on inside the district. And I'm still willing to do the best I can to help the people in the district because they were able to help me in my darkest hours when I was facing homelessness twice. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, media. We will now turn to audience questions, and please let me say that you are still very welcome to submit more questions if you'd like to do so. Please don't be shy. But we will start this off, and I think Daniel Kilgore, it's your turn to answer first. What is your position on fracking, injection wells, and pipelines?
Well, that's a fun one. So in Willard, we experienced a pipeline. So it's a country town. Our neighbors had the pipeline go straight through their garden, through their backyard, front yard, so on and so forth. The yard was a mess for at least a year and a half, almost 2 years. Then came the oil spill. And they still never really got into conversation because they can no longer grow in their garden. Pipelines are dangerous. I understand you want to try to move stuff at a cheaper rate, but at the risk of your environment, your drinking water, especially in a town that had a lot of well water, it's extremely dangerous. The same with fracking. You don't want to turn on your faucet and try to get water, and next thing you got flames coming out of every faucet in the house, including the toilet. That's going to be a nasty trip to the bathroom in the middle of the night. But these things, I understand new technologies, new ways to access resources that we have, but that has to be done in a more environmental friendly way, in a more thoughtful way, because the way the pipelines have been designed, they're one accident away from a catastrophe. And we see it time and time again with pipelines. We've also been seeing it with fracking too. So as of right now, I don't like the idea until they come up with a better and safer solution for these processes. Because I've seen what happens when they go about it the wrong way.
I'm going to just answer the question really fast. I'm against fracking and pipelines all together. And let me give you kind of an absurd story to kind of highlight something. Back home, we were putting in a leach bed for a house, and it also has a well. Well, one of the guys on the work site says, you know, one day your sewer water is going to reach your well water. And my uncle just kind of goes, ha ha ha, and just laughs it off. Okay, so why is it that 3 guys standing at a work site understands that water travels underneath of the soil, but nobody in the government and nobody who are putting in these fracking procedures actually understand that? Those chemicals that they put in to get to the natural gas will be in your drinking water. So I'm against fracking altogether because that gets there. Plus, it's a fossil fuel that we're going to run out of. We can't build an economy on it. We have to go to a 21st century energy base. So that means by the sun, by the wind, or another renewable source. And then the pipelines, you're absolutely right. They just leak, and then you just have a giant environmental disaster in front of you, and it's not really beneficial in the long run. Sorry.
And you may as well keep a hold of the microphone, Mr. Newby. Next question. What do you think are the top 3 issues concerning women's rights, and what do you plan to accomplish to address those issues?
Okay, so my top 3 would be the ERA, reproductive health, and can I sweep the fourth one? It would be childcare and equal pay. Okay? And in equal pay, I'd probably say parental paid family leave as well. So the Constitution doesn't speak about women at all. That's ridiculous. So I think that the best way that we can actually frame better constitutional arguments is to put women into the Constitution through the ERA. Right now, if you actually do a little lawyer speak, it would raise the type of scrutiny that any case that you brought based on discriminatory factors, it would raise the level, so it would be more beneficial for women to be able to sue and be more productive in winning. The next thing would be reproductive health care, and I'm not just talking about abortion, I am pro-choice, but I'm also talking about being able to go to some place like Planned Parenthood, making sure that we fund them properly so you can get actual health care there. And then paid family leave. Why are we the only civilized, well, I don't know, the only developed country without paid family leave? That's ridiculous. Sorry about that.
It's hard to stay in a minute and a half.
It's tough.
So like Joel, we kind of had same three main issues. The Equal Rights Amendment, that most definitely needs to be in there, but unfortunately the time limit has expired for it to be constitutionally ratified, which is a shame. We really need to get that in there. We also have to worry about the pay gap between men and women. White woman makes about 60 cents to the dollar of a man. A woman of color makes about 40 cents to every dollar of a man. That's absurd. You guys do the exact same type of work that we do. My grandmother did welding. She worked in a bread factory. My grandfather did welding at GM. She got paid less than what he did. So we need to get caught up to the times on that. Also, it's women's health care issues. Not just reproductive rights. I'm talking about health care in general for women. We have too many men trying to dictate what a woman can and cannot do with their body and what type of health care services they should get. That's absurd. It's the 21st century. And the next thing is, of course, parental leave, even though it's the fourth one. We're the only nation that doesn't offer it. Some employers do offer it, but it might only be like a week or two. That's not enough time to recuperate from the trauma of childbirth and try to connect with a baby. We have to catch up to the times. And we need people that realize times are changing. We need equal opportunity for everybody in this nation.
Okay, thank you. And this question again goes to you, Mr. Kilgore. Most if not all federal funding for farmers goes to big farms. We here in Athens County and in a lot of other counties in the district mainly have small local farms. So those would really benefit if they were able to get federal funding. So if you're elected, what would you do to try to help the small farmers to get funding from the government?
Well, with that one, the big farms do have a monopoly, and it's a shame. There's a lot of small family farmers that are being hurt. So what I would do once I'm elected, I want to go in and actually restructure the system. So there's more of a priority-based system. Instead of, okay, this person made X amount of dollars, they're going to get this amount of funding versus this person made the same amount, but they're going to get less funding. We have to restructure how things are going, because it's family farms that built the country. Yeah, the big farmers, the big farms like Tyson's or like the dairy farmers that have a national brand. Yeah, they do get a lot of funding, but they're not the ones that do most of the work. It's the mom and pop farms, it's the family-run farms. They need more funding, and I will do everything I can to advocate for those farms, actually give them opportunities. If they want to expand, they can expand, but if they want to keep that farm in the family, I'll do everything I can so they keep the farm in the family. That means they need more funding to do so. So I would like to go through and review the process and try to make it more efficient and more beneficial for everyone instead of the top makers of the bar.
This question is a little personal to me. I grew up in a farming community. Went to high school my high school was surrounded by so many farms that when we played football, you'd have to like watch out for the corn stalk flying across the field on a windy game. The small farmers that that live around me and that exist throughout this entire district are being pushed out. But the way that we fix that is actually do our job as a legislature and write just a few more words. All we have to do is, we do it with business across the board already. We just don't do it with ag yet. We just have to cap how many acres you have, what you're actually bringing in, make sure that we set the matrix up so that way it actually benefits small family farms, and then fund based on that, not just on the fact that, oh, you're a farmer with X amount of acres, this is how much money you get. There are other factors that definitely play a role that we can put into the law and actually work out an equation that would be more beneficial for small family farmers. The problem is that we need the willingness to do that. And with my connections to farming communities, I'd be the person to go do it.
Okay. If elected, what would you plan to do in the House of Representatives to try to reform immigration policy and to end the current deportation and abuse of immigrants and refugees?
Yeah, that's longer than 90 seconds. So I'm going to do my best here. I think one of the biggest things that we have to do before we can even change one word of the law is to change the way that we talk about immigration at all. Right now, we treat immigrants and people that are coming to this country seeking asylum like they are second-class citizens that don't belong in the same world that we Americans belong in, and that's just wrong. We need to change how we talk about immigrants. I mean, we are classifying them right now by calling them immigrants, you know? They're just people. And we need to change the overall dialogue, and I would like to be a leader to, you know, go on these TV shows and say, no, we just treat them like people. Once we get to the part where we can start talking, I would like to end the forced deportation, end the children in cages, and I think we need to focus on actual seasonal migration of farmers. That's what used to be in place before we started putting up more stringent immigration policy. But with the seasonal migration, that way it's more focused on immigrants or migrants can come to the United States, do work, and then go home. And I think that would cut both ways. People would be less worried about people staying here and freaking them out, but we'd also provide the jobs that are needed in this world's economy.
So immigration is a very complicated issue. It's one of the few things I got to see firsthand living in Willard. We had a farmland that was called the Muck. Nobody in town wanted to work it, so they bust in a whole bunch of immigrants. And everyone in the town complained because they didn't speak English, they didn't look the same, and that was my first introduction of how racist people can be for just trying to provide a living and means for their families. These were people that traveled to the United States for a better life, and they were sending money home to their families to help take care of their kids or their parents. We have to view them as human beings. They're not aliens, they're not immigrants, they're humans. We gotta change the language, we gotta change the way of thinking. It wasn't that long ago, back when we had people saying no more Germans, no more Italians, no more Jews were allowed in the United States. And every time those things came up, it was deemed unconstitutional. So we need more humane process. We need an easier to understand process for people that are trying to come to the United States either to work or to live or seeking asylum. These people are risking their lives and limb to try to have a better life, not only for themselves, but for their families. We have to start thinking of them as human beings and actually write the law as human beings and actually provide them with resources in ways that's easy to understand.
Okay. What will you do to work with your colleagues in both parties to solve the problems facing America if you are elected to the House of Representatives?
Well, with this one, it's going to go back to what I said earlier. I don't look at people by party. I will talk to anybody. I'll listen to what they have to say, and I'll also state my opinion. Good example was a few years ago, do you guys remember the Terminate Gerrymandering campaign? To try to get a fairer map on the ballot. Me as a Democrat sat in a room with Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's a Republican, to talk about getting rid of gerrymandering. Not only is he a Republican, he's also the Terminator and Conan the Barbarian. Don't step out of line in that room. But we was able to see eye and eye on things, not just on the gerrymandering issue, but also climate change issues. Because we weren't looking at a party system. We were looking at American issues. And there's a lot of Republicans that view things the same way. They just think, like we think of Republicans, they're stuck in their ways, they're not going to change their mind, they're not going to listen to anything we have to say. But you don't know that until you try to talk to them. And a lot of people are willing to open up and talk and express their ideas and their concerns. We just need people that are willing to listen to all parties involved. And that's what I do. I do it every day. I find solutions for people in difficult times. If I can do it at my job, I'm pretty sure I can do it in Washington, D.C. Why can't other politicians do the same thing that they get paid to do?
I'm sorry, but Arnold Schwarzenegger isn't the Republican of today. That Republican was before Trump. That Republican does not exist in Congress anymore, sadly. We have to deal with Jim Jordan now, and he's a completely another nuts crack. What we have to do is exactly what I do every single day as an attorney. Find the middle ground where people find a benefit on the other side. Make the compromise happen and get that bill out, and then fight again to get that bill closer to your side next time. We have to start getting used to the word compromise, and I think that I have pinpointed a few areas where we can definitely get that done. If we add in the last farm bill took out some of the farm subsidies for environmental impacts. I would like to put those back in. I think that's an area that I can negotiate with Republicans on. I think getting broadband internet, Stivers claims that he's doing something, he's not taking steps forward, but clearly there's some Republican movement there. Let's work on broadband internet. Let's work on infrastructure. These are some things that we can definitely get done that will help improve the lives of citizens in District 15. I'm an attorney. I negotiate all the time. I can get this done.
Here's one that I hope you'll be comfortable answering. I guess it's up to you. Do you have a favorite among the Democratic presidential candidates? In other words, who among them best matches your ideas and goals?
Put me on the spot. No, I'll go ahead and say it, and I'll say exactly why. I favor Elizabeth Warren. She is speaking the truth when it comes to the powerful interests that are in this country. Corporations do run this country. It's really hard to say otherwise. Corporations in a democratic city like Columbus, they're running Columbus. So I think she's the one that is speaking the truth. I think that the way that she puts topics is exactly the way I would like to put them. If I ever get to work with her, it'd be an absolute dream. But I think the bigger point is she provides me with hope. And I'm getting really sick and tired of hearing, I'm the guy that can win against Donald Trump. I want to hope again. I remember when I was down here at OU, I had Barack Obama's poster on my dorm room door. Like, he made us feel like there would be a tomorrow. And I would love to have her be our president because I think that's how we all feel. I hope that's what I can do here in Athens as well, but no, it's Elizabeth Warren for sure.
Well, good news. We're down to what, 10 instead of 27 that we started with, so it makes our jobs a little bit easier. But I do, as of right now, my main person is Elizabeth Warren. I've been Elizabeth Warren since about 2016. I thought she should have ran then. But also, I've had a chance to meet Elizabeth Warren and talk to her when she was in Columbus. And there was a time when I doubted even running for office. And the conversation that I had with her after she gave a speech was the nudge I needed to actually follow through with this process. Because she's a former special ed teacher that became a Harvard Law professor, whose mother had to support the family after her father had a heart attack. If she's able to achieve all of that because someone believed in her and now is running for president of the United States, anyone in this room can do the exact same thing. She was able to provide the hope and the courage and the push to do what was deemed impossible and make it possible. And I'm also kind of like Bernie, but right now Elizabeth is my girl. Simply because of all those great characteristics, and she reminds me of Franklin Roosevelt. The ideals that he strived for, the things he talked about. She's talking about those exact same things that are still relevant today. And hopefully, once elected, we have her as a president, and I'll be proud to call her the commander-in-chief.
I think it's a great way to answer that. Thank you. So there are some really important democratic goals that you talked about nationally. Things like the Green New Deal, infrastructure, which you both mentioned, healthcare, education. If you get elected, how do you propose that we pay for those things?
So with any big structural change or rework or retool of anything, there's always going to be a price tag. And unfortunately, none of the presidential candidates have really talked about a price tag. I know the cost of an infrastructure rehaul is $1.6 trillion. Eliminating student loan debt is another $1.2 trillion. And yet, we're giving trillions of dollars away to corporations in the top 1%. We're seeing corporations like Amazon that are breaking the $1 trillion stock market threshold, pay $0 in taxes, but yet get a $323 million tax return for paying nothing. So, we have to go back and actually get the wealthy to pay their fair share. It used to be a time when they're paying 70, 80, 90, 50%. And during those days in the 60s and 70s, a CEO was making 33 times the amount the average American made. Fast forward to today, it's now 353% the amount of what an average American makes. So we need to get the top 1% to pay their fair share for one, and we actually have to stop giving money away to corporations that really don't need it, for two, and actually start investing in these programs early before they get to the point of they're so bad it's going to cost more money to fix it now than what it would have been 10 years ago when they noticed there was a problem in the first place.
Cut the Defense Department's spending as much as possible, reasonably possible, and raise taxes on the wealthy. To be honest with you, we have a bunch of Republicans walking around in the United States right now with red caps on that says "Make America Great Again." Why I say we give them the tax structure they're asking for. Let's go back to the 1950s, where the top 1% of this country paid 90% taxes. I'm more than happy to give it to them. I think it's wrong. They are rich people in this country who are making millions of dollars a year are benefiting from this country by a larger percentage than what you or I am benefiting from it. So let's tax them at the rate that they're benefiting. That's what the tax rate should be based on. Right now, we have some sort of gobbled philosophy that's basically saying that we will cut your taxes because the prospect that you will create jobs. That's absurd. What it should really be based on is what you're able to take out of the economy. And that's the way that our country was actually founded. I mean, that's why, if you go back to, I don't have time for this, but historically, that's what taxes were based on, and I'd like to return it back to what you actually take out instead of the prospect of what you will provide.
And the last question we currently have from the audience, before we go back to the media, is what is the key issue or the key message or points related to those that you want to use in your campaigns to excite the voters in this district?
Before the primary, it's definitely going to be that I have a message that can resonate and actually win us a general. I think that will get plenty of Democrats excited. I think that my connections to the district, I think the fact that we're giving Republicans an opportunity to trust a Democrat, maybe get some of those independents on board with more progressive ideals, because I'm from them, they're able to trust me. I think that the whole message that you created me, send me to Washington, D.C. and watch me perform what you taught me, I think that will resonate. And I think that's a reason for Democrats to get excited, and I think that's going to be a reason for independents and Republicans to get excited. I know that I have this friend, he's always trolling me on Facebook, giant Donald Trump fan, and I can't stand it. I can't change his mind, I've tried a bazillion times.
I've tried to.
But what I have done was created a voter for myself. And slowly, we'll get these Republicans on board this summer by convincing them that I'm the guy you can trust. Why? Because you can. Because I'm from you. I will actually show up. Steve Stivers is not going to be here. He's turned down how many things at this point? A number of them, right? All right. I'll show up every single time. Plus, you're never going to kick me out of Athens. Trust me, they already tried.
Well, my message is a little bit different. So basically I'm just an average citizen. I'm just like you. I'm a regular worker, full-time. I'm not a career politician. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just the average citizen that wants to try to help everybody. I believe in the principles of Franklin Roosevelt's Second Bill of Rights, where you have a right to a living wage, the right to own a home, the right to adequate health care, the right to actually have enough money to go on vacation and buy new clothes. Anybody else remember what it's like to go on a vacation and buy new shoes? That's always a nice feeling when you buy something for yourself, when you have enough money to do it. That's my message. And that's been resonating with people, even if they're Republicans, if they're independents, if they're Democrats. Now, like, my father's a hardcore Trump supporter, and he's a major Republican guy. When I told him I was running for office, he told me I was crazy and he didn't have a son. He told me the same thing when I came out. But on our first debate, my father actually showed up to support me as a Democrat running for Congress. And if he could vote for me, he would, which is shocking. If I'm able to get through a Trumper, a hardcore Trumper like him, then it is possible with the message that I have and the way I'm going about talking to people and bringing everyone in. Because everyone wants to make a little more money. Everyone wants to have good health. We can do it.
And thank you, audience. After I said we only had one more question, two more good ones came in. So, how would you take on the opioid crisis?
So with the opioid crisis, that one's complicated. So a lot of the problem goes back to Big Pharma. They knew the drugs were addictive. They misled hospitals and doctors. And they actually provided doctors and hospitals with kickbacks to actually provide more of those drugs to people. They created this mess. They should be paying the price to help clean it up. We need to get resources to police departments to get more of the Narcan, the overdose life-saving drug, be able to try to help people that are overdosing. We also need to get rehab facilities covered under medical insurance. Not every insurance plan covers someone that wants to go through a rehab that's asking for help. Addiction is a disease. It's not some weird pastime that people have. We have to start treating it that way, talking about it that way, we've provided more adequate care for people during the AIDS epidemic at hospitals than we have for some people suffering from the opioid epidemic so far. And that's appalling. We did a disastrous job during the AIDS epidemic. So we need to fix those things and actually provide more resources to people, get more funding for programs that are desperately needed, more resources for the police officers, and make sure these pharmaceutical companies are paying the price for the mess they created. Not only them, but also the hospitals and doctors that later found out they were in the gimmick. They also have to help clean it up too. They have a responsibility in this matter.
This one's a little bit personal. I do have close relatives that fell victim to this. And one of them actually texted me today and asked this exact question. So, she got ahead of you. And I told her this. First, we need to start with having a real conversation. We need to decriminalize drugs. What we started with the drug war was not only a mistake, but a complete failure. We're spending way too much money for not actually doing any good. We need to treat drugs exactly the way that they should be treated. And that's as a social problem, not a criminal problem. It's a social health problem. We need to take care of it like we would with anything else. That means we need to build more hospitals, clinics. We need to be able to have needle exchanges. We need to provide child care, so once that you're off the drugs, you have an actual opportunity to go back to work. We need to find a way to allow people to actually dream again. So many addicts just completely forget that they can consider tomorrow a possibility, and that's why they turn further into drugs. Maybe it doesn't start it, but it definitely drives them further. Just give them hope for tomorrow, and we can fund those projects. And I would love to be the person that writes that bill.
Thank you. And now, what's your elevator speech? And I will note that I believe the tallest elevator in Athens is 6th floor. What's your elevator speech about climate change?
Say that's Copeland?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't spend much time on it. Elevator speech is this, is that we need to win this district, and that means that we need to be able to talk to independents and Republicans. And in my belief, the reason why those independents and Republicans turn to Donald Trump, turn to that far right-wing ideology, is because they no longer trust in government. I can bring that trust back because I'm from them. I understand why they turn to that. I get it. I've watched it happen to my uncles. I've watched it happen to my brother. I get where they're ticking. But we need to talk to them where they're at. Talk about jobs. Talk about rebuilding the infrastructure so that way they don't feel like the world is crumbling down around them. That's what we need to do. We need to worry about infrastructure, worry about jobs, and then show them that because we advocate for a single-payer system like I do, that there's also a benefit to them, even if they wouldn't receive that, what they think would be a benefit of healthcare, right? Because they don't think that they're going to benefit. Well, I pitch them this. Universal healthcare is a jobs program because small businesses will not have to be forced to provide insurance anymore. They can worry about expanding their businesses, and that's what our small towns need. Small businesses expanding.
Thank you. And I think I confused you with my mention of Copeland Hall. Sorry, the question was about climate change. But what I propose is for Mr. Kilgore to give a general elevator speech, and then we'll return to the climate change question.
Oh, is elevator about?
Yeah, that was my fault.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I was about to ask the same question. Okay.
Sorry.
I'm glad we're on the same page. I just explained to him that I'm a Democratic candidate for Congress. I believe in science. Science was one of my favorite subjects in school. And who in this room likes polar bears and penguins? Anyone? Okay. So a couple months ago, there was a photo by the New York Times showed a polar bear that was starving to death, ravaging for food. It was just fur stretched across the skeletal frame. That was heartening. That was tear-jerking. And find out yesterday Antarctica had its hottest day on record. Antarctica is supposed to be the coldest place on Earth, and it reached the mid-60s. Why? We had the continent of Australia, almost the entire continent was on fire. Lost 1 billion animals. And people say climate change is not real. The science supports it. The evidence is there. You can see it. You can read it in the paper. You can see it on the news. You can hear it on the radio every day. You have to actually be willing to make the sacrifices. If we want to save the animals that we love, that we like seeing in the zoo before they go extinct, we have to take the risk and move to green renewable energy and actually talk about the science and actually get people to understand the science does exist. The Green New Deal is possible. We can save those animals and we can save the future of our planet. We have to act now.
And Mr. Newby, since that was my fault, if you'd like to do so, you can give an elevator speech about climate change.
Just give me 30 seconds. I don't want to take more than what I need.
Yeah, it's a short elevator.
All right, sorry about that. So what I would talk about mostly is about how it's affecting farmers, because in my experience, it's how you basically have to make every issue local. And so the issue that I'm able to make extremely local is what has happened to farmers. First, they get flooded out, so they plant later, and then they get a trade policy on top of it. Anyway, they get flooded out, they plant later, and then their crop doesn't even have a chance to really grow. And then, later in the season, it really piles on where they run into a drought. So farmers are already experiencing this, and I think when we relay climate change down to a level that they can actually understand, especially here in Ohio, we don't really worry about the ocean drowning us. What we do worry about is having food. So I would relate it back to farmers and talk about how 21st century jobs program based on renewable energy would actually create jobs and save the climate and help our farmers. So once you get to that point, you're essentially piling on. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, really, it was my fault. Another one from the audience. If elected, what, if anything, could you do about the assault on the media?
That's a good one. You guys like to answer? I think that we have to go out there and actually start showing respect again. And I think that you have to come from a position of not just saying that you're being respectful, but actually being respectful. As much as I see Democrats going out there and trashing Donald Trump for what he's done to the media, which is god-awful, they still don't respect the media the way that they should either. So I think that, you know, it is one of those things that you do learn when you're a young little kid, you know, give respect, and I think that's part of what we have to start showing as an elected official. At that point, you are somebody that the community looks towards, so you do have to show that you're being respectful. I would also have very frank conversations with my Republican counterparts about understanding what they're doing to the future of this country by not allowing a truth source to come through. If we're balancing left and right media strategies, really truth isn't ever going to get out there. I can speak to a little bit of my experience. I helped bring the New Political to fruition when I was the director, the PR director for it. But what we focused on was never endorsing anybody and just giving people right down the middle ideas of where everybody stood. And I think you guys still do that still to this day, and that's the kind of information source that I would help support down straight through the middle.
So when it comes to the media, we do need a voice of reason, a voice of truth, someone that's not going to be afraid to tell us how it is, report what the facts are. In recent years, we've seen the news go from doing just that to becoming a propaganda machine. And to me, it's terrifying. Because when you attack the media, you attack the source of truth, you attack the basic knowledge or the people that are willing to call someone out for wrongdoing, you're attacking our First Amendment right. Because we do have that freedom to speak, the speech, but we also have the freedom of the press. If you start attacking the press in the way that the president's doing, other Republicans are doing, you're basically stomping all over the Bill of Rights. And it's appalling. I did journalism in high school. I had to cover some very difficult topics, especially when you're a high school student and you have to explain to parents what self-mutilation is. And these are topics that high school kids end up hearing about. Some people actually go through it, and it's a hard pill to swallow. But the newspaper provided an outlet to get the information out in a small town, just like TV stations do now, the radio does now. We're always going to hear something we're not going to like, but it doesn't mean to berate or belittle or attack them for reporting the truth or the facts of the matter.
Thank you very much to everyone in the audience who asked a really good question. I think the quality of the questions we got from the audience were really, really strong tonight. And now I would like to invite members of the media to ask an additional question or two if they're interested in doing so. I'll start at the other end of the table. George Shilcock, would you like to ask a question? From the Post.
So the question I'm going to ask, it's on a topic that we can actually hit on tonight. It's about recent rises in gun violence around the United States. This issue hits home for a lot of people in parts of the 15th district that may not live inside rural parts such as Columbus and may own guns. And if you're going to be advocating for stricter gun control and stuff like that, you need to convince people that own guns that, hey, this is not targeted at you, a safe, law-abiding gun owner. How are you going to be able to speak to these people and get them behind a plan that may try to curb gun violence and things like that?
Well, that's a tough one, and thank you, George. So with this one, this was something I actually ran past my dad. He's a gun owner, Trump supporter. You hear the phrase gun reform, he thinks you're not taking my guns today. But yeah, I sat there and explained to him, like, gun reform does not mean the government's going to come in and take your guns. No one has uttered that sentence. Besides Beto O'Rourke. He was the only one. I'm not that guy. So I understand the purpose of the right to bear arms. I'm not disputing that, but I do like the way that James Madison and Alexander Hamilton explained it in Federalist Paper number 45, I believe. They explained that the reason for that was because the United States didn't have a standing army at the time, and they wanted a well-regulated militia to defend the nation in the event of war. That was the way that they explained it, but it gave us the right to own firearms. I have no quarrel with that. We do need better background laws, red flag laws. Right now we have a patchwork of gun laws that are not the same across all 50 states. We need a system that's more easily communicable across the board, and a federal background check law would help because it would be the same across all 50. Red flag laws would also help if you believe someone's a danger, have them under surveillance, not going to come and take them away, but keep an eye on them and make sure they're not going to be a danger or a harm.
This is exactly the type of issue that my entire campaign gets at. Is that because I'm from District 15, I grew up in these communities, I know how to communicate on this issue. First thing I will tell you is that I learned how to shoot a gun when I was 5 years old. I got my first gun when I was 8 years old. And I went hunting quite often. I was a really bad hunter, so please don't hold that against me. What I will tell you is that I was taught things as an 8-year-old, as a 5-year-old, that I think would make for very sensible gun law. For instance, you know that crazy person down the street that Everybody has that guy running down the street. We all know who we're talking about. Don't give your gun to that guy, right? My guy's name is Larry. That's all I'll say about it. We don't give our gun to Larry. It's how I was taught. So, I think I could get them on background checks for that matter, because you teach to a 5-year-old, why can't we have it as a universal law? Make sure that you hand your gun over unloaded. You're clearly teaching some gun safety. Make sure that it's locked up. I think that there is a great way to stop school shootings. Sandy Hook is an example. If we would just make a law that says if you own a gun, you are criminally responsible if somebody takes that gun from your property and uses it to shoot somebody. Lock up your guns. I think that could be a really good law that we could get people on.
Heather Willard from The Messenger, would you like to ask a question?
So one of the biggest critiques of Steve Daggers is that he rarely comes to Athens and doesn't represent this area. What would you do to ensure you don't become disconnected in office and remain present and active citizens of your district?
You really think you're ever going to get rid of me here? I'm not going anywhere. And that's the point. Somewhere along the road, we decided when we were going to gerrymander our districts that we didn't care about the other votes in the district. We all know that this district was gerrymandered so Steve Stivers could live in Upper Arlington and never have to worry about Benton, Athens, Hocking County. We all know this. Problem is that I have my friends, my family, and my neighbors all the way down through here. I did the other day when I came down here to do a campaign event. I went to go visit a friend who was working at the place I used to work at. I have so many connections through here that it's not conceivable to me that I would just go to Washington, D.C. and forget it. It would be like, I honestly don't have an example. It's just completely inconceivable. I love Athens. I love each county from Columbus down here because I have so many important connections, life connections. You know, Steve Stivers moved up from the rich suburbs of Cincinnati into Columbus. He's never even really lived down through here. Like I said, I'm the only person that's currently running for this spot that went to high school in this district. I went home and played in my alumni football game. It's going to be really hard to get me pulled out of this district. They're going to have to gerrymander me out of it.
So, Stivers is what I refer to as the phantom representative. He has a name, he has a plaque, but you never see him. He's like that myth. He's like the Loch Ness Monster. There's photographs, but there's nothing there. Step one, if elected, I would want to have an office in every county of this district. So that way, people that have concerns, they don't have to trek all the way to Columbus or to Fairfield County to find a county office. They'll be able to go to their local office in the county. I want to be as accessible as possible to anybody. And that's the way I always operated. If you have any questions, you have any concerns, you should be easy to find me, or at least be able to reach out to me. I've been to Athens, I don't know how many times so far, lost count. It's a beautiful area. I love spending time down here. It's a small town. It reminds me a lot of where I grew up. But step one, more congressional offices down here. To be able to have more access to your representatives, because that way opens up the pipelines of communications that have been cut off for so long. Columbus has been the center of power for this district. It's time that we bring the power back to the counties, especially the southern half, because right now you have nothing. You have a ghost, and one of us will hopefully be the replacement for the ghost and actually bring a voice back to this area that has been neglected for 11 years already.
Delaney Murray from the A News, would you like to ask a question?
So we focused a lot on local and state issues today, and for good reason, but obviously you're going to be a representative of Congress, you're going to represent the whole country and also internationally. Julie, Mr. Colbert, you spoke to New Political back in November, and you mentioned your concerns about having to declare war on other countries. Since then, we've had international conflict between the U.S. and Iraq in January. So I want to know, if you are in Congress and you are in a difficult position to decide to put other countries or to navigate peacefully, how would you go about that conflict and why?
So with this one's a hard one. My grandfather was a veteran. My uncle was a World War II veteran. My other uncle is Marine Corps Sergeant Major veteran. All my brothers are veterans. So the prospect of having to declare war and sending a family member to war, frankly, kind of terrifies me. Because I'm going to be asking them to go somewhere that they potentially might not come back. Or parts of them won't come back, or they won't be the same when they come back. And Congress does have a duty to declare war in the event that it's necessary. And with the recent escalations and tensions that have been triggered by the President and members of the State Department are completely and utterly insane. I want to find all the facts. I don't want to have a repeat of the Iraq War, where we entered into a war on haphazard, somewhat possible information, and be stuck in a war that we may never get out of. I don't want to have a repeat of that. I will pursue diplomacy before war. We have to be the negotiators like we used to be. There was a reason why we created the United Nations. We have to start using those things that we created to prevent war from happening and stop this firecracker idea of, oh, they did this, so let's retaliate. No, let's talk it out before we start shooting, because it's our brothers, our sisters, our fathers, our aunts or uncles that might end up dying because of our choices.
If you grew up in this district, you know that when you graduate from high school, you have essentially three options. You go to college, you become basically some sort of skilled worker, but don't actually get to have the opportunity because we don't have enough skilled worker opportunities to learn the trade properly, or you go to war. At least that's what happened to my friends. Two best friends from high school went to war. My wrestling partner, war. My other wrestling partner, war. That's what happened to our generation. We got caught up in, the biggest mistake that you can think of. And I would go a step further. Bush played America like a fiddle and took us to war on false pretenses. I have studied this topic. I worry that we're not focused enough on the institutions that we have developed, like the United Nations, like NATO. I would focus more attention to that. I would want to fund the State Department more, and I would also require that certain deaths be absolutely covered. When the Great Migration was taking place in Central America's deaths wasn't even covered. We should make that a requirement as part of Congress.
And the last media question, Ben from the New Political, would you like to ask one?
So you guys have both spoke a lot about electability tonight. I'm interested in how you're going to convince voters in your own party to support a single-payer healthcare system. Because it's contentious among Republicans, obviously, but also among Black Democrats. That's a hard sell.
To be honest, I'm just going to convince them that it's best for the economy, because it is. I'm going to convince them that it will save more lives, because it will. I'm going to convince them that it's the right way to go forward because we're America and we do the right thing, or at least we should, because that's what it is. A single-payer healthcare system will not only make sure that everybody has access to the doctor they want, because right now, if you have an insurance company, that doesn't mean that you get to go to the hospital you want. It just means that you have insurance to a hospital. The universal system allows you to go to any doctor you want. The universal system allows for more jobs to be created. And what I'm talking about is that when you take the responsibility out of a business's hands to create, to give somebody insurance, They can use that money to expand their own business. It allows unions to have more power at the negotiating table because they no longer have to negotiate healthcare. They can worry about retirement and pensions. When I talk about that it saves jobs, the number one reason why somebody doesn't get preventative care is because they don't have insurance. Let's end that. Let's take care of big health issues first. Let's save jobs. Let's create. Let's save lives, create jobs, and frankly, increase wages.
Thank you. Oh, please go ahead, Mr. Gilbert.
Okay, I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but healthcare is a very complicated topic, and everybody in our own party has differences of opinion of what the best thing should be. As of right now, I'm supporting the Medicare for All platform, simply because it covers everything. Your prescriptions, hospital visit, your doctor. As of right now, like my health insurance through work. Mount Carmel Hospital is covered under my insurance plan, but the doctor at the ER is not covered under my insurance plan. So, how in the world do you know where you got to go? If there's an event of some type of catastrophe, you're in a car accident, take you to the closest hospital, that hospital might not be in your system, or that doctor that saves your life may not be in your system, and now stuck with a bill. Under Medicare for All, you don't have to worry about that. Also, you have your co-pays, you have your deductibles, and you have to pay the doctor when you go visit the doctor, right? So say I go to the doctor twice a year, meet my deductible of $1,750 plus pay $50 every time I see him, then get a bill, pay the doctor an additional $600. I'm looking at spending roughly $5,000 for going to that doctor twice. And they could just be talking to me those 2 times. Under Medicare for All, I'd be saving $2,400. Imagine how much I could do with that extra $2,400 in my paycheck and in my bank account. That's 3 months worth of rent, that's 3 months worth of car payments or more. I could get a whole new wardrobe if I wanted to. And that's going to be a different amount of savings for everybody involved. That's going to boost the economy, that's going to make everyone's lives a lot less complicated.
Okay, thank you both. We're now going to move to closing statements. You'll each have 2 minutes for your final remarks, and we will start with Mr. Kilgore.
Well, again, thank you guys for coming. I know it's a Tuesday, and it's also the New Hampshire primary. Thank you for sticking out with us. We don't want another Iowa caucus debacle. But I know I might seem like I'm not the best polished person. That's because I'm a human being. I'm trying to actually help people. My life has been a struggle. A lot of your lives probably have been something similar. We might not have gone through the same things. We might not have the same backgrounds, but we're all people. We all understand each other. We understand what it takes to try to get stuff done and try to provide and actually have a life. And I'm doing this to try to help you. I don't care if by me entering this race it's a historical marker, but I care more about the people of this district. I care about helping people of this state and helping the people as a whole. Because for too long we've had fat cats, lobbyists, lawyers, billionaires and millionaires trying to tell us how to live our lives, what gets funded, what doesn't get funded, what gets cut, what doesn't get cut, and so on and so forth. We need to go back to caring about the people, not the corporations, not the lobbyists. We got to worry about you guys. We got to protect your Social Security. We got to protect your pensions. We got to protect your health care. We got to protect our climate. We got to protect our infrastructure and our jobs. And that's what I'm hoping to do. And I can't do it alone. I need all of you, and I need all the people of this district. Because when we all work together, anything can happen. We've done it countless times before. We've put a man on the moon. We put a railroad from one coast to the next. We can do it. We just got to believe that can be done. And again, thank you guys for coming out tonight. And also thank you to the League of Women Voters for doing this as well and all the great work that you do. And thank you to the members of the press as well.
I feel like I've said this quite often tonight, but this issue grew up in Pickaway County. I went to school down here. I now live in Franklin County where I'm able to practice law. It was because of the federal government that I was even able to come to OU. It was because of the federal government that my entire world didn't collapse in 2008 when the crisis came. It was because of the federal government that, we stopped Hitler and my grandparents moved to the small town that I grew up in because we were able to stop the Great Depression. Democrats did that. And for far, far, far too long, Appalachia, Ohio has been left behind. And I honestly think that it takes somebody that is built from that community to go to Washington, D.C. and do something about it. Because Pickaway County built me, Athens County built me, Franklin County built me, and countless counties in between. I'm built from District 15. I understand what's going on and I get the pain. I get that, our economy is doing really great for those on Wall Street, but when you sit out here, it's really not that great. We could do better. I know how we can do better. I want to work on infrastructure. I want to bring a 21st century economy, not just to the city of Athens, but to the county of Athens, to the county of Benton County, to Hocking County. This district has built me into somebody that can actually make that change. Send me to Washington, D.C., and I'm going to make that change. Joel Newby, I hope I can get your vote on March 17th.
Thank you both. I'd like to close this forum by again thanking Joel Newby and Daniel Kilgore for coming to Athens tonight and participating in this aspect of the democratic process. I'd again like to thank all of you as well. Showing up is so important for these things.